So what if you are not a resident of Minnesota? Can you still end up owing estate tax to Minnesota? And the answer to that is actually yes. Hi, I'm Claire, Langton-Yanowitz from the Yanowitz Law Firm, where we've been helping clients with estate tax the last 29 years. If you don't qualify as a resident of Minnesota, you could still owe estate tax if you have property in Minnesota. If you're a non-resident, the property that we look at is whether you have tangible property in Minnesota. That oftentimes includes real estate. It could also include like a car that you have here or any equipment that you have here. That is all subject to Minnesota estate tax. And sometimes people ask, well, what if I have my real estate in an entity? It's owned by a partnership or an LLC, then I don't own the real estate, the partnership owns it. And so therefore, I shouldn't be subject to Minnesota estate tax. And we have a rule that says it will look through, it will see through that entity, and you can still be subject to Minnesota estate tax, even though that real estate isn't actually what you own an interest in a company, but Minnesota says it's going to look through that and you can still be subject to Minnesota estate tax. The first question that we have to ask is, are you over the Minnesota exemption? And that's including property in Minnesota and outside of Minnesota. And so right now, the Minnesota exemption is $3 million. So we'll ask, is your property greater than 3 million, irrespective of where it's located? And if the answer to that is no, then we can stop the evaluation there. If the answer to that is yes, then we have to calculate what you would owe. Okay, so basically what we would look and see is, let's say you have a $4 million estate, property, irrespective of where it's located. And let's say hypothetically, the tax on a $4 million estate is $100,000. Now, let's say the Minnesota property attributed out of your 4 million is 2 million. Okay, so 2 out of the 4 million is real estate here in Minnesota. So then what you do is you do 100,000, the value of what the estate tax would be in the instance you are a resident of Minnesota. So you take 100,000 times a fraction of 2 million over 4 million, the amount of property you have in Minnesota over the amount of property that you have everywhere. And so your total tax to Minnesota is $50,000, okay? It's half what it would be if you're a Minnesota resident. So that's kind of generally how it works. This example here is an oversimplification. This area is complicated. So the takeaways that I would like you to keep with you is that, yes, you can owe estate tax to Minnesota if you continue to have real estate here or tangible personal property here. And that is only the case if you have over $3 million in total of your property anywhere. And the amount of estate tax owed will be reduced if you're a non-resident than if you were a resident. You're going to pay less estate tax if you're a non-resident. And it's going to be subject to how much property you actually have in Minnesota. So thanks so much for listening. If you found this video helpful, feel free to share it with a friend and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can hear more about wills, trusts, and probate. Thank you.